Okay. Hi everyone, my name's Anu and I'm from the UK and I am about to be interviewed on the Online Prosperity Show by the amazing Prosper. And the whole show will be around my own journey of overcoming childhood trauma and toxic relationships. And it's a journey which was very traumatic at the time, but I managed to overcome it. And that's why I'm here today to share with you all that you can also overcome any obstacles that you may have to go through, and that you don't need to suffer in silence because there's always a way out. We are resilient human beings, and I hope you find this episode inspiring.
Now, welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, your number one destination for exclusive insights into transformative journeys and personal growth. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we're going to be diving into a story that epitomizes resilience and empowerment. Now, Anu, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. More so meeting you this morning. I absolutely love your energy.
Oh, absolutely. See, the pleasure is all mine. It takes two to tango, Anu, So if you showed up and you were probably just looking at me weird, I'll probably have just given you that weird vibe too. So, I appreciate your energy too. I'm just giving back what I'm being given.
Oh, that's amazing. Absolutely. Energy exchange. Yeah, I love it. And yeah, it's the best thing for this Sunday. Is this Sunday where no, it's Monday, sorry, where you are.
It is a Monday, but I really appreciate you being on the show today. For those that are tuning in, you will get to learn that Anu is the visionary behind Victim to Victor, and she has transformed her own personal experiences of childhood sexual abuse and domestic trauma into a powerful platform that now supports and inspires countless individuals on their own healing journeys. And she's become an author, podcaster, a trauma therapist, and now screenwriter. Her multifaceted approach to healing is both profound and practical. So she's written a memoir, which is Victim to Victor, which has now, or which is actually more than a personal narrative. It has now become a beacon for hope for those that are actually navigating the aftermath of trauma that they would have experienced themselves. And I did talk about her being a screenwriter. Her upcoming film, Silent Screams, promises to extend this impact, which brings her story to the screen. And now she's reaching an even broader audience. And we're just lucky to catch her before she gets uber famous. And, would have to talk to her people just to get a sound bite. So grab your favorite beverage and settle in as I want you to prepare to be moved by a conversation that actually promises to enlighten and empower ourselves. Now, I know I could go on and on, but with the way things have been going, fame is slowly coming and creeping in. You've written a book, you've got a podcast, and now a screenplay. Tell us what this is all about.
Wow, thank you so much for that amazing introduction. It's got to be the best one yet. And hey, you describe me as being this person on a pedestal, but I've got humble beings, and I've come from a very humble family, and I remain that way. I have never ever had any intention of ever becoming famous. For me, it's all about the impact that I bring and the people that I serve, and the people that I help ultimately, because I know what suffering from trauma feels like. I had 3 decades of it and not even understanding why I was feeling the way I was. And, my whole kind of motto to life was, oh, we're only going to die anyway. So it's like I was living my life to just die because I had no idea what else there was. I mean, I had no idea what happiness felt like, what fulfillment felt like. And so, I went through so much of my life feeling this way, and you can only imagine how that impacted on, the way that I felt about myself. I felt low. My self-esteem was rock bottom, and I just felt vulnerable and very naive. And so a lot of this started from when I was just 3 years old, and my innocence got taken away from me because I was actually a victim of childhood sexual abuse, and that carried on for many, many years. And at the time, I was just a child, and I just thought it was normal, that it was a game, and that we just went through this, and it was just like playing, with your dolls, but you were playing with this grown adult. And so, just later on, when I was at a legal age of 18, then I started to think that, just sex was just part of life, and you just give away it like you do with sweets. And so I had zero respect for myself, and that affected my ability to have relationships because then I just didn't even associate a relationship with intimacy. Those two things were separate because I just thought, no, intimacy and sex is just a thing that you do, it's a game. Whereas, having a relationship seems quite boring. So it really impacted my ability to form any kind of a relationship, not even with a partner, but friendships as well, because I just couldn't trust people. And so I'd end up hurting people a lot. And I was actually known as, the girl who just was like, flamboyant and, who didn't actually care. But I didn't care for myself. I had zero love for myself. So how was I able to even, give that to anybody? And so even in my 20s and 30s, I was attracting real bad people into my life, including domestically abusive partners. And I had no idea what narcissism was. And it was only after that I escaped from a narcissistic relationship, I realized what that actually meant. And that I'd actually been in this narcissistic relationship for 2 years. And again, I was heavily controlled and manipulated and abused, financially abused. And he actually took a lot of money from me. And then I guess my life turned around when that was like the final straw after I'd had numerous other relationships which just abused me. That this relationship, I thought, you know what, I'm not going to let him get away with, what he's just done. He owes me a lot of money. And so I managed to find the strength to take him to court. And I actually won as well. The magistrates saw straight through him. And so I won, and that was my first ever sign of victory. And with that, I associated feeling, love for myself, like just a little bit of love, because I thought, wow, this actually feels really great. I've never had this feeling before. And to be honest, that was the kind of start of my healing journey. And that was only in my like early 30s. And from then on, I actually sought help from energy healers, and I actually got myself a coach, and I started to follow, some of these personal development gurus like Tony Robbins had a real impact on my life. And then I started to understand that, I had so many negative beliefs about myself, and that I really needed to understand myself better, and who was the real Anu, the one before the innocence got taken away from her. And it's been like a decade of healing and really, self-discovery and trying to love myself. It's really not, a fast journey. These things take time. And so that's when I started to journal. And from that journal came my book. And then I realized that I was still quite ashamed of what happened to me. I carried a lot of guilt and a lot of self-blame. And then I started to talk about it on my podcast, and that was in 2021. And then it was just by talking about it that I started to release it finally from my system. because with that when you talk about anything, it starts to become very normalized. You become habituated to it. And just by actually, the more that I spoke about it, and just by having guests on my show, and having like a mutual conversation about it, it was then really that I started to understand that what happened to me wasn't my fault, and that I was just a child, and I was taken advantage of. And that's when my all my knowledge around trauma, PTSD, started to develop as well. I became like a traumatologist, so I've just been studying it all nonstop. And then that's where I am today. I then realized that my story could actually be taken to the big screen, and so I'm now working with a director and a producer to convert my story into a screenplay to become a movie. So yeah, that's where I am today. And I'm also helping many other survivors, through my therapy and coaching practice as well. And I feel great. Finally in my life, I'm at a place where, I feel like I'm living my purpose. Mm.
Thank you so much for taking us through that. Now, Anu, three is a very delicate age, and we're very impressionable then.
It's a young age. Yeah.
It's such a heavy thing. I've got girls myself, and I wouldn't wish that on any of them. Would So when this was happening, were there other people that could have helped or seen or been told, or was that accepted?
Yeah, that's a issue in itself, a cultural issue. So this paedophile was actually a tenant. He was actually just renting a room for my parents just to help out because my parents had come from nothing really. And so it was all happening behind their back. They were busy working because you can imagine back in the 80s, they were working a lot in order to provide for the family and to obviously build. They were busy building, and so a lot of this was just happening, behind closed doors. So they didn't have an idea at all. And then when eventually it did start to come out, because they just didn't have the resources or the ability to even understand it or to deal with it, it was just brushed under the carpet. And the only victory that I got from that was when this pedophile actually died. He died later on in my life. And that's when I thought, wow, that this actually feels really strange because I wasn't able to even fight for justice. And it just ended. It was just kind of taken out of my hands and ended. And so now when people ask, oh, did you actually take him to court? Well, I couldn't because he was already in his grave. So now all I have is, the flashbacks because I started to get flashbacks when I was in my 30s. Up until then, it had just been a blocked memory, deliberately blocked because of the shame, right? And you can imagine what happens when we do actually block bad memories like that into our body is it comes out in other ways. And there's many other ways that a lot of trauma comes out. And I spoke about this earlier, that addiction, that's a huge sign of deep rooted issues. And when people become alcoholics, they might be addicted to drugs, and they might even smoking as well, and porn addiction. There's so many different issues that arise later on in life. And also like a big one for me was anxiety and depression. I suffered a lot with anxiety and depression, and at the time, when I was going to seek therapy from counselors, it didn't even occur to me that it would be linked to what happened to me as a child. And so what I would do in those sessions is just talk about what was happening at that time in my life. And it was usually around, these bad relationships that I was in. So the root cause wasn't even getting dealt with. And that's partly because it was suppressed, because that it hadn't come out yet. And it was only through Reiki healing that a lot of these memories started to come out. Because with any healing modality, what happens is it unblocks the chakras in the body, and that enables the energy to flow. And as soon as your chakras get unblocked, things get released. And so I remember, I was actually waking up in the middle of the night, just crying, just uncontrollably, like crying like a baby because of all the memories that were coming out. And even the smell of this perpetrator, that even that, I could smell it. And it was just, and that's when I realized, wow, this is what PTSD actually is, because it's flashbacks, and it's the senses that you start to get, and so yeah, I think this probably happens to many people, and they do actually say there was actually a statistics that said that it does actually take on average 3 decades for memories of childhood trauma to actually come out.
Wow. And obviously, so you're going to school, was it affected by any of this that would have been happening? Would that have had an impact in maybe your performance or things of that nature, just you being out there at least?
Oh, definitely, yeah, because just from what I remember from my school days was just being very suppressed, very in my shell, not being to really communicate or to be open with people or to even have a laugh. I was just very like with my head low, and hunched shoulders. So I was very alone. I felt alone. And even later on, when I started to work, confidence levels were just very low. And so just I wasn't able to sell myself in interviews because I never felt worthy of getting a good job. So I'd always settle for low salary jobs because that's all I thought of myself. I never thought that I was worth anything more. And again, this is very common whenever I have my clients and I see that if they have been impacted by any type of trauma, then it's a very common symptom where they will not they will not feel that they deserve to excel in any of their careers, and so they'll just make do with whatever they have.
Mm. Now, maybe let's just skip back, come back to the memo, and then maybe go back a little bit into your journey and stuff like that. Um, this has resonated with a lot of people, and I think that's the reason why we even decided to have you on the show. What was the most challenging part of writing such a personal account? Because this is your life story, and you were made and meant to relive it, and now that it's out, you constantly have to relive it again, and things of that nature.
I do. Yeah, it was when I was writing it, it felt very healing because I was able to then make logic of everything. Because what happens is, as a trauma survivor, we're in fight, flight, or freeze mode. So it's like the amygdala part of the brain, which, it's like the defense part of the brain where, we are literally wanting to protect ourselves. And so what happens then is that you can't reason with things, and there's no logical sense of anything. All that we have is, right, we need to remain protected. So you either freeze, or you either like run off. In my case, I used to just fly away to different countries as a way of coping, or you'll fight. You'll get angry, and then a lot of trauma survivors end up in prison because of that, because they end up damaging people because of their anger. So by actually writing, it then helps to it's your prefrontal cortex, which is your logical reasoning part of the brain, and that actually helps you to make sense of things, which we all need to do. If someone out there has experienced any type of trauma or anything that may have happened to you that you have no idea if it could be trauma, then do start writing about it, because that will really help you to make sense of it. So that was one part of the journey. Another part was the fact that being from an Asian family, actually writing this book and releasing it would put shame on the family. And so all my family were against the idea. And so they were telling me to not even go there. So I had to do this on my own. Like, I had zero support from anybody. And then that created a lot of trauma. So I had a lot of trauma that came back. And then I had to actually hire a counselor, I hired a healer, and I had to hire a coach in order to help me through the whole process. So again, it was such a traumatic process. And then even when the book was out, I just wanted to release and forget. But then people were coming back to me saying, oh my God, it's really impacted my life. But in a way, I just wanted to not have to acknowledge people's messages about it either. And again, I had to get a lot of healing around that. And then finally, I started to really, accept that, what I've done, it's a real good thing, and that I should actually be proud of myself. And then I started to then get the support that I needed and these were from people who weren't part of my family network. These were just like, new people that I was then forming connections with. And so, and again, that's when I started to realize that community is everything. We need to be around people that understand us and that really support us, because that ultimately can, be like the difference between, us like being fulfilled in our lives, or, wanting to end our lives. So that's when I started to realize that, we need good people around us to support us through.
Oh,
So yeah.
absolutely. I mean, in such a scenario, you're going to need all the support you can. But you did mention cultural stigmas and things of that nature. What's the scenario like now?
Now, I think because I'm out there a lot with my podcasting, and I've done a lot of newspaper and magazine articles around this as well. So, I am obviously like an advocate for trauma. And I think everybody is seeing, the impact that I'm making and the people that I'm helping. And now, through my film journey as well, there's no hiding. We have to embrace and face, what's happened to me. And also we have to understand that it's still out there going on. The last statistic that I saw, like in India alone, is that there's a rape every 6 minutes. And so, yeah, these things are still happening. It's an absolute tragedy that people are still being so hurt by, sexual abuse and domestic violence. And so my movie now is going to be something which hopefully does make an impact, and it leaves a legacy behind of a journey that I had to take, which I am no longer ashamed of. And I have a daughter and a son. My son's 6 and my daughter's going to be 3 in August. And so this is a legacy that I want to leave for them.
Absolutely. So the film that you have started to work on, Silent Screams, is obviously based on your life story and everything else that happened to you. The book in and of itself is what you say they're adapting into a screenplay and things of that nature, right? Now, what sort of impact is do you hope to maybe have on the audiences that are going to watch this, because you're now really putting it out there in full view for everyone to see the exact pain that you went through?
Yeah. And so the film is, so I'm on my 8th draft at the moment, and it's changed phenomenally since my first draft, because there's just so many hidden messages in there that I really want to hone in on. And it's stuff which we keep, we try and hide from people. And that's the suffering that we endure, from what may have happened to us as a child. And there's going to be a lot of social justice topics in there. So we're going to be covering termination from a rape. So, basically pregnancy from a rape, and how, we shouldn't really have to keep that baby. And I know that abortion now is something which has been banned in a few of the states in America. And so I feel like it's going to be a very controversial topic to discuss, but I feel like it needs to be discussed because why should a woman have to keep a baby if, if it's come from a sexual assault? I just don't understand the reasoning behind that. So it's going to be covering a lot of, the isolation and suppression that we suffer alone. So yeah, I do feel like it's going to be a very impactful movie, and it's not going to be all based on the negatives. There is going to be act three of the movie, which is going to be all around healing and all around gaining that fulfillment finally, and to give people hope that they don't have to remain in that suffering and in that you know in that negative state, and that they can actually heal from their trauma and actually go and find happiness.
Absolutely, because I feel like you are giving people permission to go out there and really, no matter how vulnerable they are or the lack of support like you experience, because if, as you
Mm.
say, most of these things are just being swept under the rug just so people can save face. and
Mm.
yeah, it's just not the right sort of thing,
Mm.
to do. And you received a message from people, like you
Mm.
were saying, and although you didn't want to receive some of them, whose lives were changed by some of the work that you are doing. Maybe you can share a particular story that reaffirmed your mission, obviously without identifying the person and putting them at risk.
Yeah, so the one that really springs to mind is actually receiving a LinkedIn a DM from the brother of this survivor. So he basically messaged me and said, he thanked me, saying that his sister had actually left her domestically abusive marriage, and that she'd been suffering for about 10 years. And she started to go to these charities which help these domestic abusive females. And they actually had a copy of my book there, which she then took out to read. And it was just by reading that book. And again, this was an Asian lady. And I think because it was written by an Asian lady, she felt that she resonated a lot with the story and the journey, and it just gave her the hope to actually leave her marriage. And the brother thanked me for it, saying that it was my book, and he just really is so happy that his sister can now go on and find real happiness and not have to suffer anymore. So that really touched me.
Representation matters, because had that been somebody else, she wouldn't have noticed and seen that, um, whatever's happening around her is not a okay and the way to be, because I obviously believe fish do not see the water that they swim in. So if this is the everyday occurrence around you, you might not actually see, that this is actually maybe a wrong thing, or whatever. But I, you mentioned a brother who is somebody outside of the events and the trauma. How
Mm.
can people that are outside but immediate family or people sort of start seeing signs, or what can they do to help? Because things like this won't go further if the people that are around us are also enabling or are also helping out in stamping out any of these bad actors.
True. Yeah, yeah. And this is a very important matter because the thing is, when you're the victim and you're in that situation, it's sometimes it's difficult for anybody to even understand what's going on because they're so manipulated and so controlled that they just see that it's just a normal way of life. And so the big telltale signs usually is when, the victim will cut off ties with family and friends because, the perpetrators basically told them to. And so there'll be a lot of distance and isolation, symptoms going on. And they might even be excusing their partner. So, for example, if they might have a black eye, or they might have cuts and bruises. And so what they'll do is pretend that they fell down the stairs or something, or that a door hit them. So I think again, physical signs are really important. And also they might just feel really suppressed and not really themselves at family functions anymore. And a lot of the time it's that they'll actually go in their shell. And I only remember this from when I was suppressed and went in my shell, and they'll just be making excuses. So I think there's quite a few different elements to that, as somebody outside looking in. And it's very hard for anybody to try and rescue that victim, especially when they're in that phase. So I think the best way is, rather than say, "Oh, you need to get out of that relationship," they won't. That they will no way do that at first hand. And so education, I feel, would be key at that point, to basically try and maybe deliver some educational content around, domestic abuse, or around what narcissism means, or, kind of telltale signs of a perpetrator. And there's so many online resources around that. The Freedom Program is something which I was also volunteering at. The Freedom Program actually gives you all of this. So it gives you all the telltale signs of, what to look out for in a perpetrator. Very fantastic resource, which again, it's available online. And so just by them maybe just having a read of, some of this could even help to instill that into them, thinking, oh, okay, so yeah, this actually isn't right. The fact that he's punched me in the eye, that's not right. That obviously he says after he's punched me, he says he loves me, but yeah, he shouldn't have punched me in the first place. So it's just, planting that seed in the victim's head. I think that would be the best way forward. And they say on average, a victim will go back to their perpetrator 7 times before actually leaving them.
Mm.
So that could even be an issue, even though they might leave at that time. They might feel lonely and invalidated on their own, and then they'll probably want to go back, because that perpetrator gives them that sense of comfort. Because a lot of the time, why do we stay in these abusive relationships? It's because we feel so bad about ourselves. And so we just want that validation, even though it's not the right validation. At least it's something. It fills that missing part of you, which you've struggled to fill all your life probably. Which is why it's so important to practice self-love. But when we can, to really understand ourselves and accept ourselves, and to truly value ourselves.
Absolutely. So it is akin to Stockholm syndrome then.
Oh, sorry.
It is akin to Stockholm syndrome then.
Oh, yes, it is. Absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Stockholm syndrome. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah. So I think with that, again, it's when you've been manipulated and gaslighted, you just start to like you got this like, it's a false world view of the person, and then yeah, you just start to think that that they're actually good people. It does. It takes a while for anybody to understand, what somebody is really about. And that's what I always say, education is key. Knowledge is power.
Mm. Now, you've mentioned that you've got a podcast, right? And, victim to victor, and you're featuring diverse stories in there of resilience and, stories that people are telling you. First of all, how are you selecting these guests, and what sort of common thread have you noticed amongst their stories?
Yeah, so honestly, there's just so many amazing, healers and helpers out there who are helping people to overcome trauma. And so I do get a lot of experts who come on my show. And what I find is, even though, there might be, let's say, a lot of trauma therapists, each of them have their own unique modalities or, unique insights. And so nobody ever has the same story to share, which is why I'm so open, and I absolutely love having varied people on, to actually share these insights. And something like a common thread that I've noticed is the fact that if you are a survivor, then talking therapy may not be the right approach in order to understand what may have happened to you. Talking therapy is really good to help you, gain logic around something, but to really heal from any kind of past traumas, then it is important to really get somebody who is qualified to deal with that. And a common kind of symptom of any trauma survivor is that, we just don't feel safe. You don't feel grounded, and hence the freeze, fight, and flight response. We're just on that we're just on the edge all the time. And so the first few sessions of any therapy session should be safety stabilization techniques, which helps you to feel safe and grounded and stable. And a lot of that consists of like visualization techniques, and just like kind of guided meditations, and there's many different things that you can do. So I just feel that for anybody who does want trauma therapy, then to make sure that it is a trauma therapist, somebody who specializes in dealing with that,
Mm,
that they go to. Mm.
absolutely. And obviously, from what you're saying, it sounds like healing can actually rejuvenate one's spirit. Like it literally, helps them turn back the clock so they can, really start living their life without going through the sort of suffering that they would have
Mm.
gone through. Now, maybe can you elaborate on how your personal transformation was affected by your outlook on life?
Yeah, I think with me, it definitely started when I started to release all the baggage that I was carrying, It was heavy. It really weighed on me. And I mean, I'm not even on about emotionally. I'm on about as in physically as well. I couldn't. I was actually like 2 stones heavier. Like I actually couldn't even lose the weight. Like it was that. It was that much. Ingrained into me. And as soon as I started to release it, I started to feel lighter, and I was then able to become slimmer. And it's crazy, isn't it? We wouldn't even think that it would have such a physical impact on us. And like, again, the thing that really helped me was not only the energy healing, but also just the personal development work that I did around, limiting beliefs and all my negative beliefs that were holding me back. Like, the fact that I didn't feel like I deserved love, and I didn't even know what happiness was. So how would I deserve that? Who am I? I'm just a piece of crap. And so it's overcoming all of these horrible words that I was saying about myself, and to instill them with positive words. And I did that through affirmation work, and just repetitively speaking positive words about myself. And a very easy technique which anybody can apply today is, on your iPhones, or on your Androids even, like just put on reminders like every 3 hours, like just some affirmations, like positive stuff about yourself. Ones that worked for me was, I am enough, I am loved, I can achieve anything that I want to, I am a high valued woman. So just stuff like that, which comes up on your screen consistently, because we're just so conditioned to negative news, and all the like bad stuff that comes up on the news. And that I feel like we really have to train ourselves to have positive words, actually come in through into us and through our brains. And we have to do that by being really conscious about it and actually doing it ourselves.
Mm. Now, as you were, you're growing, you went on a route that obviously defies a lot of the things that you're talking about now. You were a scientist before and you were involved in medical roles and things of that nature. Now I'm just waiting to hear how all of this now sort of connects, because you're now on this whole different side of the spectrum.
Yeah.
Especially when it comes to, yes, for me, the reason why I saved this for last is because usually when people have a right brain and a left brain, it's either or. You know what I mean? You keep talking about the flight or flight or whatever it is, but you seem to kind of have that midpoint where it actually can connect both, and I can actually see you drifting into both brains and being logic and still being able to have a laugh at the end of the day. It's a remarkable skill to have. Yeah,
Oh
because
my God.
so many people, when they're maybe in the right side of their brain, they're just all sages and singing kumbaya and drinking kombucha, and it's in the right side of things. But yeah, tell me how you managed to swing through that. Is it something you do consciously, or are you just realizing it now?
Yeah, to be honest, yeah, this has been pointed out to me a lot because, when I started to qualify in yoga training, and I was qualifying in all as a Reiki master, I became that, and emotional freedom therapist, hypnotherapist. Again, this was very spiritual work that I was doing, but I've always been a scientist. That's always been my thing, and I think I've all, in terms of academics. I've always loved learning anyway, so I've always had that business logical side of me as well. And then to actually combine the two, it's great. That's how we can then, have a fulfilled life, because then we know that we can make money and also be fulfilled. And again, I've always like invested, and I've always ensured that I can have a comfortable living. So, I do have property investments, and, I have like this online course that I make passive income from. And then I've got my Victim to Victor brand as well. And, so I'm always involved in projects. But that's just my business side of the brain.
No, that's amazing, because now you've created a pathway that people can follow, and it's a 12-week self-discovery sort of plan that people, and you're offering various resources, which I think you're uniquely positioned for this kind of work. The reason why I'm bringing this up is because not only have you experienced the trauma, because some people are just the person sitting on the other side of the couch and just taking notes and prescribing another hour of a session without them having known what it's like to have
Yeah.
gone through that. And you've got the science to back it up with also the reality. Okay, I'll call it reality, but with the actual spirituality of it. And then whatever you're going to be bringing to people is like a balanced view, and it's not leaning on one side just because of what feels good. Now, what can people expect from your programs?
Yeah, so again, my 12-week coaching program is actually, I'm actually with them for 6 months in total, but it is actually a program which I've designed, from my own expertise and experience and insights. So it's a very tailored program to basically what worked with me. I'll basically put that into this program, which is benefiting many, many people. And and it's something which I am really passionate about and confident that it will make a difference. And I think, with the fact that, because obviously coaching is very much about goal setting and, here and now and future. But then with trauma, a lot of the times that won't work, because with trauma, a lot of the times we have to go back to, what may have happened, and we have to try and heal that part of ourselves and to then move on. So I think, the fact that I've got my therapy in there, it really does help as well. And it just means that clients know that they'll be safe with me, because it won't just be, this very vulnerable coaching program. It'll be something which, yeah, you can open up to me and we can work on this together. So that's something that I'm really passionate about as well, helping people to really uncover, what may have happened to them and how they can live better lives. Mm.
Mm, absolutely. And I viscerally think you're giving people back to themselves in this kind of work that you're doing, because if they're all closed in and the people around them are not doing anything to help their story, and the professionals around them might just be, just doing the motions. If you're doing this for them, you're literally creating a community of people that they can rely on and people that they can sort of have support from, and things like that. Now, how can people jump on board your sessions, or what is the first thing that they might need to do in order to get started?
So please do get in touch with me. So if you can either email me, which is anu@victimtovictor.net with a number 2, or you can just go onto my website and contact me via my website, and just let me know how I can help. I am here to help and I'm here to serve, and I'm really excited about helping people to heal from their trauma. Please do follow me on my socials as well. I'm on all the major platforms like Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and I do a lot of reels on Instagram. So you'll get a lot of value from my kind of quick problem solving reels as well. So please do, jump on that. Yeah.
Mm. Now, obviously, I'll put all those links in the show notes so that people can you know get started on their journey. But there might be that one person who's probably watching this and they're rolling their eyes and being very skeptical about maybe the effectiveness of this kind of therapy as opposed to traditional sort of methods of coaching. What would you say to somebody like that?
I'd say, look, from somebody who tried everything myself, that there's no point in being skeptical. You have to go out there and just try it. And definitely, I felt as well is that when there's a therapist who has been through that journey themselves, then they tend to understand the journey much better, and they can actually emphasize with, your struggles that you're going through right now. And I would say, try and find somebody who has been through that journey, because that they'll be able to help you better, I find. Whereas other, therapists who may just kind of have learnt this at college, or might just have learnt this from a textbook, then even though they might have some great insights to share, but the actual empathy side of it, do they really understand the real struggles? So that's something that I would question. Do they really understand your journey, and can they really feel, what may have happened to you, and understand the right ways to heal you? So yeah, so I guess that's what I would ask them to think about.
Absolutely. Now, for those that are watching or listening and maybe struggling in silence, because like you said, it took you 3 decades to finally, come out and say this. What would you
Mm.
recommend that they do to maybe step towards healing and just reclaiming their self and their voice or their person?
Yeah, well, first of all, just find somebody that you can talk to, somebody who is non-biased, non-judgmental, somebody who you can trust as well. Just talk to them about what may be going on through your brain right now. What is it? Is it memories coming up, or is it because you just don't feel that well? And so just find somebody who you can open up to, and then eventually, when you're ready, seek some help. Find a healer, find a therapist, and go onto these online communities on Facebook. There's quite a lot as well, and just start to learn about all of this. That will be the first step, I'd say.
Absolutely.
Mm.
Now, Anu, I can't thank you enough for the time and the expertise that you just shared with us today on the Online Prosperity Show.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing your profound journey and just the incredible work that you're doing through victim to victor. And I think your story is a testament to and resilience of the human spirit and its capacity to heal and thrive. Thank you.
Thank you so much for having me on. It's been an absolute honor.
And for those that are watching right now, if Anu's story resonated with you, I want you to consider exploring her resources at victim2victor.net, or maybe tuning into her podcast and signing up for her free webinar on integrating therapy and coaching for healing. I'll put all those links in the show notes below so that you can actually get started on your journey. And while you're at it, why don't you share this video with somebody who might be going through stuff and might not be able to speak up? Maybe this video could be, that sign that they were looking for, at least something that would help them, help themselves. And if somebody has shared this video with you, thank them, because maybe they're looking out for you in more ways than you could ever think of. And while you're at it, don't forget to subscribe to the Online Prosperity Show for more inspiring conversations like this, because in our next episode, we're going to be diving into ideas that can actually help you lead to a happier existence. All right. I really thank you, Anu, for your time. And for those that are watching, thank you so much for tuning into the Online Prosperity Show. Until next time, stay empowered and keep striving for prosperity in all areas of your life. Bye for now.